Last summer, Elton John disappeared without a trace. Upon his eventual return, he was no longer able to sign his own name. Physicians say they are unsure whether he will ever get well. His latest record is the result of a particularly dark period of insecurity. Is this the reason he abruptly called it quits? The truth is soon to be revealed, and it has nothing to do with the virus, his team stated. Instead of a music hall, Elton John's journey started in a peaceful family room. Reginald Dwight was just 4 years old when he sat at his grandmother's piano and learned the Skater's Waltz by ear without any instruction. His mother was taken aback. No one had taught him. He knew how to play and had just listened once. His entire life would be defined by that type of unadulterated skill. He could hear a lengthy classical piece once and play it again like a tape, according to one teacher, even after he eventually began instruction at the age of 7. He was already the life of the party at family get-togethers by the time he was a youngster, imitating Jerry Lee Lewis and giving a stylish performance. He was unique because of his self-taught spark, which propelled him onward. Despite coming from a working-class background in Pinner, Middlesex, he was awarded a scholarship at the esteemed Royal Academy of Music in London when he was 11 years old. He went into the city every Saturday to take classical music lessons. Although he excelled academically, he secretly disliked it. He once acknowledged that he seldom ever practiced and occasionally skipped class to take the train. Nevertheless, his innate ability kept him ahead. In 1967, everything was different. He was on a band bus with his group Bluesology one day when he was asked a straightforward question. "What will you name yourself now that we've arrived?" Reginald Dwight ceased to be Reginald Dwight at that point. He combined the names of his bandmates Long John Baldry and Elton Dean to come up with a new one. He was looking for something unique and distinctive. A few years later, he formally changed it to Elton Hercules John, choosing the middle name Hercules, not because of the tail, but because of a British sitcom horse. He was free because of the name. It enabled him to move past his modest origins and into a more expansive existence. Like many struggling musicians, Elton worked in sessions prior to becoming a success. He played piano subtly on the Hollies' smash song He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother, in 1969. He only received £12. Although he was not given credit, his playing gave the song a genuine sense of feeling. He also sang backing vocals for Tom Jones' smash song Delilah around the same period. Even though his name was not yet well known, these behind-the-scenes positions helped him hone his talents and shown that he could manage any musical situation. A little ad in a music magazine was the pivotal moment. Both Elton and a young songwriter called Bernie Taupin applied when Liberty Records was seeking new artists. The record executive was informed by Elton that he could compose music but not words. When the CEO gave him Bernie's poem, their lives were forever altered. On the train trip home, Elton read Bernie's remarks and was immediately moved. They met and began working together shortly after. At first they penned songs for other singers, but it was when they wrote songs for Elton that they truly excelled. Their collaboration, which began with a chance advertisement, would endure for many years. However, initially, things didn't proceed as planned. In 1969, they released their debut album Empty Sky, but it was a failure. Elton was devastated. In his opinion, the tracks were excellent, particularly the title track. However, the album's combination of weird instruments and hallucinogenic noises was too bizarre. Years passed before it was ever published in the United States. After Elton had already achieved fame, he and Bernie had to reconsider everything after that initial setback. Everything changed when they began composing songs that were clearer and simpler. During breakfast one day in 1969, Bernie scrawled the words of a song on a sheet of paper in Elton's mother's kitchen. There were even stains from tea on it. He gave it to Elton, who proceeded to the piano and finished writing the song's melody in 20 minutes. In the US and the UK, it made it into the top 10 and became his first big success. Despite the fact that Bernie had never experienced love, the lyrics were incredibly genuine. Furthermore, nobody truly knows who the song was about to this day. The most unexpected aspect of Elton was how different he was off stage. He was timid and even insecure in his early years. He hardly moved when friends first watched him play in the UK. However, things changed when he traveled to the United States, particularly when he performed his breakout gig at the Troubadour in Los Angeles. He suddenly became audacious, dramatic, and memorable. He owned the stage, strutted, and danced. Stuart Epps, his friend, was taken aback. It was like witnessing someone entirely different. Elton then clarified that he used the stage persona as a means of escaping his anxieties. Elton John did something that no one else had ever done between 1972 and 1975. He put out 7 consecutive albums, all of which peaked at #1 in the US. He dominated the charts for about 40 weeks throughout those years. A new Elton record seemed to be at the top every other month at one time. In 1972 it all began with Honky Chateau. That record topped the charts for 5 weeks and gave us Rocket Man, Rock of the Westies, Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy, Caribou, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, Don't Shoot Me and I'm Only the Piano Player followed. They all went straight to the top, and keep in mind that it all started when he was only 24 years old. None of his albums had ever peaked at #1 until Honky Chateau. He was suddenly unable to stop. There was more to this than statistics. His artistic zenith occurred throughout these years. Later, 6 of the albums were rated among the best ever produced. Elton also developed a close acquaintance with John Lennon during this same turbulent period. Their relationship swiftly deepened. Living in Los Angeles, apart from Yoko Ono partying heavily and feeling lost, Lennon was going through a difficult period. Elton established himself as a constant in his life. They collaborated on a song that Lennon had begun after hearing a preacher remark, "Whatever gets you through the night, late at night." Elton Gambled helped finish the track and loved the line. Lennon would accompany him on stage if the song became a #1 smash. Lennon gave it a chuckle. He had not given a live performance in years and had no intention of doing so. The song did, however, reach #1. Thus, in November 1974, Lennon on the stage at Madison Square Garden, keeping his promise. It was the last time he performed live. Even more potent was his reunion with Yoko backstage that evening. From then on, everything was different. Elton surprised everyone with a light-hearted duet while he was riding this wave. He and Kiki Dee collaborated on Don't Go Breaking My Heart in 1976. It was lively, entertaining and catchy. A deliberate nod to Motown-style duets. For fun, they even wrote it under fictitious identities. For the first time in his career, the song peaked at #1 in the UK and the US charts. The crazy thing is that they composed it for Dusty Springfield at first, but they had to change their minds since she wasn't feeling well. Elton even reversed his typical procedure. Bernie Taupin contributed the lyrics after he finished writing the music. Despite never appearing on a legitimate album, it became one of Elton's biggest successes. Snow Queen, the B-side A-tune, didn't do as well. It emerged from a dirty place, according to Elton and Bernie, who eventually distanced themselves from it. The creation of Goodbye Yellow Brick Road was one of the most notable events of this entire period. A huge double album like that should take months to complete. However, Elton completed the entire project in just 17 days. It wasn't a smooth beginning. In Jamaica, they made their first attempt at recording. However, the studio was a complete failure. Poor equipment, armed protection, and even violent threats. Instead, they bailed and traveled to a quiet estate in France. The magic took place there. Elton would get up every morning, sit at the piano, and compose tunes as he ate breakfast. He could do one in as little as 20 minutes at times. They were often recorded in a few takes by the band that same day. Candle in the Wind was one of the tunes. Elton recorded it immediately after writing it in the morning. 17 songs are the end product. Music for 76 minutes. A record that would become one of the best albums ever created and sell over 20 million copies. Vodka and Tonics were among its early working titles, but it eventually became one of the most recognizable albums in rock history. Elton John was more than simply a rock sensation in the 1970s. In a sparkling realm of extravagance, he lived like a king. He was spending over $40,000 a week on shopping alone at the height of his stardom. He brought 42 trunks and 67 bags full of everything he had purchased back to England after a single trip to the United States. The more cocaine he consumed, the more bizarre his taste got. He purchased a radio once. It has volume controls on its chest and is designed like a doll wearing a see-through negligee. He once purchased a life-size gorilla statue that was clothed in Edwardian attire. The most outrageous event, however, was when he chose to purchase a real tram from Australia during a 3-day coke binge. It was a genuine one, not a replica, that required 2 Chinook helicopters to transport it to Britain and drop it on his lawn. Even a life-size T-Rex was purchased by him. He gained nearly $8 million when he sold the majority of his strange collection at auction years later. His spending wasn't the only thing impacted by his drug usage. John Lennon and I were in the middle of a cocaine binge one night in New York while staying at a hotel. They were both intoxicated and nervous around 2 in the morning, certain that someone was pursuing them. Elton became alarmed when he heard a knock on the door. "Is it the cops?" he murmured, and simply looking through the peephole took him 5 minutes. The police weren't involved, Andy Warhol was the one. However, they froze rather than allowing the artist entry. The door was not opened by Lennon. When Warhol rang the bell and knocked, the 2 musicians pretended not to be there and remained silent. Warhol eventually gave up and walked away. Lennon later chuckled about it, claiming it was the enjoyable aspect of cocaine. Elton also frequently attended Studio 54, the well-known nightclub in New York where the wealthy and well-known partied endlessly, back then. He frequently appeared on the dance floor with pals like Liza Minnelli and Bianca Jagger, dressed in his most outrageous outfits. Bianca and Liza would occasionally even perform spontaneous duets for the audience, as Warhol took photographs. Everything might happen there, and it usually did. Elton acknowledged that this was when he was most uncontrollable, staying up for days at a stretch, using marijuana, drinking whiskey, and becoming high. Elton made history, in spite of all of this chaos. He was the first overtly flamboyant Western rock singer to play in the Soviet Union in 1979, during the Cold War. He gave 8 performances in Leningrad and Moscow. Some others spent a third of their monthly pay, only to gain entries since tickets were so in high demand. He felt uneasy. He doubted that nobody in the USSR even recognized him. He was warned by Soviet authorities not to perform the Beatles in the USSR. Naturally, he did. Later, Elton quipped that the KGB should have known better than to warn him against doing something if they had been observing him. Even the British Embassy hailed the excursion as one of the most significant East-West cultural exchanges since Khrushchev's 1959 visit to Hollywood. Elton John's life was getting out of hand by the early 1980s. He had become addicted to cocaine. He began damaging hotel rooms without even realizing it, since he blacked out so frequently. On certain days, he would go 3 or 4 days without taking a shower. He would feast on pornography, drink an entire bottle of scotch, and seldom spoke to anybody. In addition, he suffered from bulimia, starving himself for days before overindulging in ice cream and bacon sandwiches, just to puke it all up and start over. "I had absolutely no self-respect," he subsequently acknowledged. "It was simply fucking awful." He ceased being confronted by those around him. He was too strong and too well known. He said that because of who I was, no one dared to speak. Even people used to the drug-fueled music environment in Los Angeles in the 1970s were astonished by the amount of cocaine he was consuming. While filming the music video for I'm Still Standing in Cannes in 1983, things reached yet another low point. Elton agreed with Duran Duran members who believed it would be amusing to make him intoxicated. In an hour, he drank 6 or 8 vodka martinis, drank a few lines of coke, and staggered back to the stage. He demanded that the cameras begin shooting while he rolled about on the floor, fully nude. Elton hit John Reed, his manager and partner, so forcefully that it was believed he had broken his nose when he attempted to stop him. His aide showed him the ruined hotel room the following morning. The assistant simply said, "Elton, you happened," when Elton inquired about what had happened. There were warning indications even before then. "I have taken 85 Valiums," Elton stated calmly, as he stepped out by his house's pool in front of friends and family in October 1975. "I'll be dead in an hour." Then, in an attempt to drown himself, he plunged into the pool. But he couldn't, because of his physique. He struggled to survive intuitively. He had his stomach pumped by paramedics. His family's response was chilly. "I guess we've all got to go home now," his grandma replied. Remarkably, he was performing in front of a huge audience at Dodger Stadium only a day later. "It was stress," he subsequently said. "It was normal for me though, as I had been working constantly for 5 years. I couldn't possibly end my own life by doing that." He had even attempted suicide before. His head was in the oven when Bernie Taupin discovered him in the kitchen years prior, but the gas was turned down. The windows were open, as well as Elton resting on a cushion. He was unable to totally commit, even when he tried to break it off. Friends continued to offer assistance during the late 1980s, but he wasn't prepared to hear it. George Harrison witnessed the chaos at a raucous party in Los Angeles and attempted to intervene. Elton showed Bob Dylan around the garden while high and very intoxicated, without even comprehending who he was. He genuinely volunteered to assist Dylan change his clothing since he thought Dylan was a staff member. At that point, George went straight up to him. He told Elton, "I think you really need to go steady on the old marching powder." Elton, however, dismissed it with a laugh. Despite George's repeated attempts to speak with him over the years, Elton was still unable to accept the reality. He wouldn't get clean until 1990, after many more years of turmoil and harm. Elton John was having trouble in the late 1980s. He had alcohol and drug addictions. He was on a risky road and struggled with bulimia as well. Then, however, an unforeseen event occurred that altered his life. Ryan White was a teenage guy he met. In addition to having hemophilia, Ryan contracted HIV from a contaminated blood transfusion. Ryan's infirmity led to harsh treatment from others, but Elton saw something unique about him. They became good friends after meeting in 1985. Frequently paid Ryan a visit when he was ill. Elton was devastated when Ryan passed away in 1990 at the age of 18. In front of 1,500 people, he sang Skyline Pigeon and carried a pall during the burial. He was greatly shaken by that incident. "I intended to assist Ryan and his family, but they helped me much more," Elton remarked years later. After 16 years of addiction, Elton eventually quit within 6 months after Ryan's passing. He had nearly died several times. He passed out, went blue, and experienced convulsions. However, Ryan's bravery and his family's generosity provided Elton with the motivation he required. Ryan was the one who made him see the reality. Despite the fact that the AIDS catastrophe was all around him, Elton wanted to accomplish more now that he was clean. He founded the Elton John AIDS Foundation in 1992. He wished to combat the illness that had claimed his friend's life. Many people still feared and discriminated against persons with AIDS at the time, but Elton utilized his celebrity to raise awareness of the problem. The charity provided funding to help the most vulnerable, such as drug addicts, sex workers, and men who had sex with other men. It eventually grew to become one of the largest and most reputable AIDS groups worldwide. It provided grants totaling millions of dollars, funded more than 1,000 initiatives, and continued to strive for the permanent eradication of AIDS. Elton had a personal mission. He remained active, ensuring that the foundation prioritized both immediate assistance and systemic change. It was more than just a charity for celebrities. It was genuine, born of love and suffering. Then tragedy struck once more in 1997. Princess Diana lost her life in a Paris automobile accident. She and Elton had been good friends. He attended her burial in Westminster Abbey a week later. Elton and his longtime songwriter Bernie Taupin updated their classic song Candle in the Wind in honor of Diana when Richard Branson invited him to play. Goodbye. England's Rose was the opening phrase in the updated version. Elton feared making a mistake in front of millions of people. To ensure he didn't forget the words, he utilized a teleprompter. He subsequently referred to it as one of the most bizarre experiences of his life. He recorded the updated version of the song immediately following the burial. It just took 2 takes to complete. The song became viral all over the world. In just 1 week it sold more than 3 million copies in the United States alone. It became the best-selling single of all time, after selling 33 million copies globally. Elton hasn't done it again though. He wants for it to be a one-time homage to Diana. Elton experienced another pivotal occurrence in his life less than a year later. he appeared in front of Buckingham Palace on February 24, 1998. He became Sir Elton John after the Queen tapped him on each shoulder with a sword. It was an enormous honor. He was knighted as the first openly homosexual artist. Even a humorous error was made. By mistake, the announcer referred to him as Sir John Elton. According to Elton, the Queen told him she was happy he attended, even though she understood he must be busy after the event. This knighthood was even more significant than his 1995 promotion to Commander of the British Empire. It acknowledged his music as well as his efforts to combat AIDS during a period when many people were still reluctant to discuss the disease. He received another unique honor years later, when Prince Charles, who is now King Charles III, admitted him into the Order of the Companions of Honor. That honor is held by just 65 persons nationwide. Elton John's career in musical theater is filled with daring stunts, significant risks, and life-changing experiences. When he moved The Lion King from the screen to the stage, one of the most amazing chapters started. Not everyone was on board at first. Tim Rice, Elton's longtime lyricist, campaigned hard for him, even though senior executive Roy E. Disney said he didn't like his music. The difficulties continued even after the position was secured. Elton later learned that Can You Feel the Love Tonight had been omitted entirely from the film. He phoned the CEO of Disney right away and insisted that it be returned. The song remained popular and won an Oscar. When The Lion King had its theatrical musical debut in Minneapolis in July 1997, that same resolve persisted. It was an immediate smash when it debuted on Broadway a few months later. The show became a global sensation, eventually making over $8 billion, more than any movie or television program ever filmed, and becoming the highest-earning title in entertainment history. With more than 10,000 performances to date, it is still going strong. That was not all that Elton did. He took on another compelling narrative with Billy Elliot in 2005. The musical, which was set in England in the 1980s during the miners' strike, featured a little child who aspired to be a ballet dancer. Critics hailed the play right away, and Elton's music added emotional depth to the narrative. It swept the Tony Prizes in New York, and won significant theatrical prizes in London. When Elton joined the three original Billies on stage for the first anniversary performance, it was a moment to remember. The influence of the show was so great that a movie version that was screened in theaters took the top spot at the UK and Irish box office, something that had never happened with a theatrical production. Elton came to the realization that he had discovered a new purpose after The Lion King. He once said that the musical was his first opportunity to compose on the stage. Ada, Billy Elliot, The Vampire Lestat, and most recently Tammy Faye, which debuted on Broadway in 2024, are among the works produced by him throughout the years. Jake Shears wrote the lyrics for that show on televangelist Jim and Tammy Faye Bakker, which starred Christian Borle and Katie Brabin, two of the biggest names in theater. In addition to winning accolades, Elton's musicals have broken records. At one point, Billy Elliot and the producers shared the record for the most Tony nominations ever, and in 2023, decades after its premiere, The Lion King achieved a new milestone when it made over $4 million in a single week. In July 2024, Elton John, then 77, developed an eye infection while on vacation in the south of France. It appeared to be something little at first, but it soon turned severe. His right eye was so severely injured by the infection that he was unable to see at all. He revealed on Instagram in September that he had spent the summer recuperating in private at home. In an appearance with Good Morning America in November, a few months later, he talked candidly about what had transpired. It took a long time and hurt to recover. It was uncertain to the doctors if he would ever regain his sight. Elton said that he was also experiencing problems with his left eye. Overall, his vision had deteriorated significantly. His vision has deteriorated to the point where he was unable to sign his entire name by March 2025. This was devastating for a man who had signed thousands of signatures over 50 years. For the special version of his new album, Who Believes in Angels, he had to alter his signature to a simple E and a kiss. The £24.99 record included a message explaining the reason for the altered signature. Later on, Elton admitted that he nearly didn't complete the record. He feared that his vision might fail him. He acknowledged that he began composing it from a very low place of doubt. In an interview with BBC Radio 2, "I had more doubt on this record than I had ever had in my life, even after all the years I've been making music," he remarked. But he persevered with the support of his lifelong friend Bernie Taupin and American singer Brandi Carlile. The record came to represent his suffering as well as his fortitude. Elton revealed in more interviews how drastically his life had altered. "Nothing's visible to me. Nothing can be read by me. I am unable to watch anything," he declared. He felt overpowered and trapped. Even everyday chores became difficult. He clarified that the inability to view the words made it particularly difficult to create music. Nevertheless, he discovered reasons to be thankful. As he got about to debut his documentary Elton John, Never Too Late on Disney+, he declared, "I'm the luckiest man in the world." He has other health problems besides this visual issues. He had previously undergone hip and knee replacements as well as surgery to treat prostate cancer. In retrospect, he talked candidly about growing older. "My life is in its later stages," he remarked. "I don't know how much time I have left. When you reach my age, you start to consider it more." Elton made an appearance at The Devil Wears Prada musical's premiere night at London's Dominion Theatre on December 1, 2024. There were celebrities including Lily Collins, Donatella Versace, and Anna Wintour. Elton came on stage and informed the audience, "But I love to hear it, and boy, it sounded good tonight," while sporting bright red sunglasses. The Elton John AIDS Foundation also raised money that evening. David Furnish, his spouse, supported him the entire evening and helped him go on and off the stage. Elton referred to him as his rock. His love of theater and music persisted despite his inability to watch the production he helped build. From The Lion King to Billy Elliot, the devil now dons a Prada. Despite the gloom, Elton John continued to find ways to create.